Man, let me tell you something. The more I sit down and learn about Islam, the more I realize just how much Muslims think long term. And I'm not talking about next week or next year. I'm talking far. I'm talking about the kind of long term that makes you change how you act today because you know what's coming tomorrow. So when somebody told me, Steve, you ever heard what Muslims believe about the Day of Judgment? I thought it was just going to be a couple of warnings, a few do's and don'ts, maybe some dramatic storytelling. But no, they got a whole roadmap. They got signs, they got stages, they got events described in a way that really makes you sit there and go, now, hold on. This sounds like something folks ought to pay attention to. And what really got me was how Muslims talk about it. They don't treat it like some Hollywood movie scene. They talk about it like it's real, like it's something that'll come whether you're ready or not. And your job is just to live in a way where you ain't scared of it. And man, the more I read, the more I understood why. What struck me first were the minor signs, those slow shifts in society, the changes in people, the attitudes, the behaviors. Muslims believe these are like little taps on the shoulder, reminders that the world ain't just drifting along for no reason. I be reading things like people chasing money no matter the cost, families drifting apart, truth becoming something folks don't even care to hear. And I'm sitting there thinking, we seeing all that today. You scroll through social media for 5 minutes and you feel like you just walked through a whole checklist. Then you got those natural disasters, the imbalance, the injustice, the chaos. And Muslims say these aren't random. They're signs. They're warnings that humanity is moving in a direction that ain't sustainable. And what got me is that none of these signs were described to scare you. They're described to wake you up. Because Islam always circles back to this one message. This life is temporary, and you better make the most of it while you can. And then when you keep reading, you learn about those major signs. And let me tell you, Muslims talk about those with a whole different tone. They say once those big signs start, it's like a domino effect, one thing after another, no stopping it. They talk about figures like the Dajjal, this deceiver who cause unbelievable chaos. And I'm reading it thinking, man, this is the kind of thing that'll test what you really believe. Then there's the return of Jesus, and that part shocked me the most. Because I grew up hearing about Jesus in church my whole life. But Muslims believe he's coming back too, and not only that, they believe he's coming back as a man of truth, justice, humility, and that he's going to set things right after all that chaos. And I'm sitting there like, now this is something I didn't expect to overlap. You start seeing how different faiths connect in places you never thought they would. And then there's more strange occurrences in nature, massive shifts in the world, things that'll make even the strongest people stop and question everything they thought they understood. What really stayed with me, though, wasn't the dramatic stuff. It wasn't the shocking descriptions or the massive events. It was how Muslims talk about what all of it means. See, this ain't entertainment for them. It's a reminder to stay grounded, to stay humble, to stay grateful, to stay connected to God, to stay kind to people, even when the world around you starts getting messy. They believe the signs aren't there to make you panic. They're there to make you look at how you're living. And honestly, the more I sat with it, the more I realized that whether you believe in every detail or not, the message hits the same. Your life matters more when you remember it's not the final chapter. And man, thinking like that changes the way you treat people, the way you work, the way you talk, the way you pray, and the way you carry yourself through the chaos of the world. Now, the thing that really got me thinking, the part that had me sitting there for a good hour afterward, was how personal all of this becomes once you start going deeper. Because at first it sounds like some big global conversation, nations rising and falling, natural disasters, this whole world shifting. But then you realize Muslims don't just study these signs to predict the future. They study them to understand themselves. And that hit me hard because a sign ain't just something happening on the outside. Sometimes a sign is something happening inside of you. The Quran talks about people getting so caught up in chasing what everybody else got that they forget who they are. It talks about arrogance taking over hearts, people starting to value their reputation more than their character, and life becoming all about what looks good instead of what is good. And the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he described that kind of world like he was watching what we living in right now. There's a narration Muslims talk about where he said people will trust the wrong folks and the honest ones will be dismissed. And I swear, I read that and laughed out loud because, man, that's the internet today. Somebody with no experience in anything will get on a screen and tell the whole world how to live and we'll believe them. Meanwhile, someone who actually got wisdom, actually lived life, actually knows what they're talking about, can't get 10 seconds of attention. And Muslims say that's a sign, not a sign like a giant billboard falling from the sky, but a sign of people losing their sense of truth. And when you lose your sense of truth, you lose your sense of morality with it. One of the signs was this description of time, feeling like it's moving faster. Muslims say that's one of the minor signs that years will feel like months, months like weeks, weeks like days. And tell me, that's not exactly how life feels right now. You blink and a whole year gone. And the part that shook me was when scholars explained it. They said the blessing gets taken out of time, meaning you're busy but not fulfilled, occupied but not growing, connected to everyone but lonely at the same time. Tell me that ain't the modern world. That ain't technology speeding us up until we don't even remember what slowing down feels like. The more I read, the more I realize these signs aren't just predictions of what's coming, they're reflections of what's already happening. And Muslims don't study them to say, look at how messed up the world is. They study them to say, what am I doing to not get swept up in all this? Because when you remember the world ain't permanent, you stop treating temporary things like they're worth losing your soul over. It pulls you back. It makes you check your ego. It makes you rethink the grudges you holding, the time you wasted, the people you hurt, the apologies you never gave. These signs aren't there to scare you. They're there to make you better. And man, I felt that. I felt every part of that. And I understood why Muslims take it seriously. Because if you knew your report card was coming soon, you'd start fixing your behavior today. Then you get to the part that surprised me the most, the return of Jesus. Now, for somebody like me who grew up in a Christian household, hearing that Islam has Jesus in the story of the end times, and not just as a footnote, but as a central figure, it stopped me in my tracks. Muslims believe he's returning, not as a new messenger, not with a new religion, but as a man sent by God to put truth back in its place after everything's been flipped upside down. They say he'll come back with humility, with gentleness, with clarity, the exact opposite of the chaos the Dajjal spreads. And something about that hit me deeply because it paints this picture of good returning in its purest form right when the world needs it the most. And I realized something, whether you're Muslim, Christian, or anything else, that idea of light breaking through when darkness looks like it's winning, that touches something in all of us. And then there's this moment Muslims talk about where Jesus defeats the Dajjal and the world finally takes a breath, but that ain't the end. Because after that, they say there are other massive signs like Gog and Magog, nations causing destruction across the earth. And when you hear Muslims talk about it, it's never in a sensational way. It's always explained with this message underneath. Don't let the world fool you into thinking it's permanent. Don't let the noise make you forget your purpose. Don't let power and technology and progress blind you to the fact that every empire, every system, every illusion eventually falls apart. And honestly, it humbled me because we live in a time where people think humanity is unstoppable. Look at the way we talk about ourselves, like we can solve everything, control everything, predict everything. But these signs remind you that no matter how advanced you get, the world is still in God's hands. And the part that stuck with me the longest was this idea Muslims repeat over and over. The point of knowing these signs isn't to panic, and it ain't to sit around trying to calculate dates. It's to build yourself. It's to check your heart. It's to ask, am I the kind of person who would stand firm in truth even when the whole world flips upside down? Because at the end of the day, the signs ain't about the sky turning red or mountains shaking or oceans roaring. Those are just reminders. The real signs show up in your character, in how you treat people, how you worship, how you forgive, how you stay honest, even when dishonesty is the trend. And the more I understood that, the more I realized why Muslims keep these teachings close. They ain't trying to predict the end, they're trying to be ready for it whenever it comes.